Welcome to This Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here with us today. We're about to set off on this absolutely profound journey through the human experience, and we're going to be looking at it through the lens of 6 deeply moving poems. We're literally exploring the entire human life cycle, from searching for our very purpose, to navigating family bonds, facing the completely unstoppable forces of nature, and finally, confronting time and solitude. It's a fascinating ride, so let's just get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're moving chronologically through the human life cycle. Section 1 is the question of purpose. Section 2, aging and family bonds. Section 3 covers nature, tragedy, and duty. And Section 4 brings us to time and solitude.
All right, Section 1, the question of purpose. We're moving right into Walt Whitman's Oh Me, Oh Life, and tackling that heavy existential dread we all feel when facing the empty and useless years.
But before we get to Whitman's brilliant answer, let's pause and look at the mechanics of the text for a second. You'll probably notice words like filled and renewed. These are contractions. In poetry, writers intentionally use these shortened words to maintain a very specific rhythm or meter in the line. Understanding the structural choice helps us read the poem with the exact pacing Whitman intended, right as he builds up to these incredibly heavy, thoughtful themes.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Whitman abruptly shifts the tone. He actually answers his own bleak existential questions with this incredibly empowering call to action. His answer to why we endure the struggle is simply this: that you are here, that life exists, an identity, that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. I mean, wow, the simple fact that you exist is the purpose. And that brings us to Section 2, Aging and Family Bonds. Here we'll be looking at Joanne Snow Duncanson's deeply moving poem, Two Mothers Remembered. And this brilliantly illustrates the devastating reality of aging. The speaker describes having 2 mothers. Now, the first mother is the one who nurtured her, launched her career, and laughed with her, as daughters and mothers naturally do. But as time passes and her mind clouds, she becomes the second mother. This second mother looks the exact same, but she behaves like a child, completely needing her daughter's strength. It's this stark, heartbreaking role reversal where things come full circle and the parent literally becomes the child. Let's move to and see how this builds into Section 3, Nature, Tragedy, and Duty. We're pivoting outward from those intimate family bonds to look at how humanity interacts with the sheer, uncontrollable power of the wider world. We really see this tragic interplay in Charles Kingsley's poem, The Sands of Dee. Now, just to make sure we're all on the same page with the vocabulary here, a maiden is a young, unmarried woman, and a salmon is a large fish shining in the water. Kingsley uses these specific terms to paint a vivid picture of natural beauty right alongside a grim, looming tragedy.
So the maiden in the poem, Mary, is sent out to call the cattle home across the sands. But nature is wild and completely unforgiving. The poem says, "The rolling mist came down and hid the land, and never home came she. The western tide creeps up, and she tragically drowns in the cruel, crawling foam." It's a stark, chilling reminder of our absolute fragility in the face of nature's raw, indifferent power.
Now, we find a very different interaction with nature in Robert Frost's famous Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Here, nature isn't violently cruel. Actually, it's beautifully restful. The dark, frozen woods are super inviting, but the speaker resists the pull to just stay. He notes, "The woods are lovely, dark, and deep, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep." You can really feel the deep conflict here between nature's restful tranquility and our human obligations.
Which leads me to ask you directly, what promises does the speaker actually have to keep? The poem doesn't explicitly tell us. It leaves us to ponder the societal duties, the daily grind, and the responsibilities that are constantly pulling us away from rest and reflection. We all have our own miles to go, right? We all have promises that keep us moving through our own dark evenings.
And those miles inevitably lead us to the final chapter of our life cycle arc, Section 4, Time and Solitude, featuring works by Ralph Hodgson and Ella Wheeler Wilcox.
So Ralph Hodgson's poem addresses time directly as an old gypsy man. Now, a gypsy represents a nomadic, free-spirited wanderer. By personifying time this way, the poet brilliantly illustrates how time just cannot be tamed, harnessed, or forced to settle down. It is always moving, always packing up its caravan and completely refusing to stay put.
The speaker in this poem is so desperate to pause his life that he literally tries to bribe this old wanderer to stay for just a single day.
Consider these lavish, almost absurd offerings for a second. The best silver bells for a horse, a great golden ring beaten by goldsmiths, bowing peacocks, singing boys, and sweet girls decorating him with flowers. It emphasizes the absolute futility of trying to bribe or pause time. No matter the riches offered, time won't stop. No way.
To further visualize this, Hodgson maps out time's unceasing historical journey. Look at this. Last week, it was in the ancient city of Babylon. Last night, Rome. By morning, it's under St. Paul's Dome in London. And in a mere moment, it's off again to cities yet to be born or ones already in the tomb. This timeline completely drives home the core argument. Time spans all of human civilization, and it truly waits for absolutely no one.
As time marches us toward the end of our cycle, we often face profound isolation, which is a theme explored in Ella Wheeler Wilcox's poem, Solitude. The poem opens with these incredibly famous lines: "Laugh, and the world laughs with you. Weep, and you weep alone." So, the crucial point is that while the sad old earth is totally happy to borrow your mirth and share in your joy, it shrinks away from your sorrow.
The poem draws a super sharp contrast between shared pleasure and solitary hardship. I mean, think about it. Success brings crowded halls and joyful echoes. People seek you out. But when we face true pain or ultimately death, we do it alone. The text describes how we must file one by one through the narrow aisles of pain and points out the stark reality that no man can help you die. It's a very sobering look at our ultimate solitude.
And that brings us full circle right back to Walt Whitman's opening realization. If time is a relentless wanderer, and if our struggles and our final moments are ultimately solitary, well, we're still left with the extraordinary fact that life exists at all. The powerful play goes on, and you, yes you, have the opportunity to contribute a verse. Knowing all this about the human life cycle, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder today.